Sweat beaded on Nia Caldwell's brow as Judge Harlan Cobb's gavel slammed in the Atlanta courtroom, 1,925 souls watching. "Unfit to speak, girl," he spat, a racist slur slicing the air. Gasps erupted. Nia, unflinching, stood tall. "I'm Chief Justice Marcus Caldwell's sister." Marcus rose, eyes blazing, halting the trial. Cobb's face drained, humiliated as Marcus condemned him. Suspension loomed, but Cobb's vengeful glare burned. What would his wrath unleash? Before we dive deeper, share where you're watching from. If you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode will shock you. Nia Caldwell's heart raced as she stepped out of the Atlanta courthouse, the humid air of July 2025 clinging to her skin like a second pulse. The crowd's cheers still echoed in her ears, their fists raised in solidarity as Judge Harlan Cobb's suspension was announced. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up from strangers calling her a hero. The video of her standing up to Cobb, revealing her identity as Chief Justice Marcus Caldwell's sister, had exploded online, racking up 3 million views in 12 hours. News anchors replayed the moment Cobb's smug grin collapsed, his racist slur exposed to the world. Nia's client, a young black man named Jamal Porter, accused of theft on flimsy evidence, walked free that morning, the case dismissed after Marcus's intervention. For the first time in weeks, Nia felt a flicker of hope, a sense that justice might not be a myth. She clutched her briefcase, her paralegal badge glinting in the sun, and allowed herself a small smile. This was her win, her defiance against a system that had tried to silence her. She headed to her office at Grayson & Holt, a mid-tier law firm, expecting at least a nod of approval from her colleagues. The victory felt like a shield, proof she could take on giants like Cobb and come out standing. But as she pushed through the glass doors, the air shifted, heavy with something unspoken. The receptionist, usually chatty, avoided her eyes focusing on her computer screen. Nia's steps echoed in the quiet lobby, her heels clicking against marble. She rode the elevator to the 5th floor, her reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman who looked unbreakable. Yet a knot tightened in her stomach, a whisper of doubt she couldn't shake. The office was a maze of cubicles and glass-walled conference rooms, but today it felt like a gauntlet. Her colleagues, mostly white men in crisp suits, glanced up. As she passed, their expressions unreadable. She reached her desk, a small corner space cluttered with case files, and found a sticky note scrawled with, "Check your email." Her inbox was flooded, but one message from Richard Grayson, the firm's senior partner, stood out, marked urgent. Nia clicked it, her pulse quickening. The email was curt, summoning her to his office immediately. She smoothed her blazer, took a breath, and walked to the corner suite where Grayson waited behind a mahogany desk, his face a mask of forced calm. He didn't invite her to sit. "Nia, your actions in court have caused a stir," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. She straightened, expecting praise or at least acknowledgement of her courage. Instead, he leaned forward, his eyes cold. "Clients are uncomfortable. They're questioning our professionalism." Nia's stomach dropped. She opened her mouth to protest, but Grayson raised a hand. "You're being reassigned to document review effective today. No more courtroom work." The words hit like a slap. Document review was a demotion, a dead-end task for junior staff, not a seasoned paralegal. Like her, she'd spent 6 years clawing her way up, taking night classes, working weekends, all to stand in courtrooms like the one yesterday. Now, because she dared to speak, to expose Cobb's bigotry, they were burying her. "This is about the video, isn't it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. Grayson's lips thinned, but he didn't deny it. "Perception matters, Nia. You've made yourself a lightning rod." She wanted to scream that she'd done the right thing, that Cobb's slur and Jamal's freedom proved it. But the look in Grayson's eyes told her arguing was futile. She nodded, swallowing her pride, and left his office, the door clicking shut like a cell. Back at her desk, the atmosphere had shifted further. Her colleagues, who'd once shared coffee and case notes, now avoided her. She overheard whispers from the break room, words like troublemaker and too aggressive, cutting through the hum of printers. Her friend Sarah, a fellow paralegal, wouldn't meet her gaze, muttering about a deadline as she hurried away. Nia's chest tightened, the betrayal sharper than Grayson's words. These were people she'd trusted, worked late nights with, celebrated wins with. Now they treated her like a pariah, their silence louder than any slur. She tried to focus on work, sorting through emails, but a new message popped up, this time from an anonymous account. It contained a screenshot of her private email to Sarah, sent weeks ago, venting about a client's arrogance. The message twisted her words, making her sound unhinged, racist even, though the client was white. Nia's blood ran cold. Someone had hacked her account, cherry-picked her words, and was spreading them. She checked her sent folder, her heart pounding. Dozens of her emails had been forwarded to unknown addresses. By noon, the firm's internal chat was buzzing with the leaked messages, her name dragged through the mud. She confronted Sarah, who stammered, "I didn't share anything, Nia, I swear." But the lie was in her eyes, the way she clutched her coffee mug too tightly. Nia's phone pinged again, this time with a link to a blog post titled "The Truth" about Nia Caldwell. It was a hit piece, reposting her emails alongside lies about her history of workplace conflicts. The comments section was a cesspool, filled with slurs and threats, calling her a race baiter who'd faked the courtroom incident. Her victory, so bright that morning, was crumbling into ash. She felt eyes on her, the office now a hostile maze. She packed her things, intending to leave early, but Grayson called her back to his office. He stood by the window, his silhouette stark against the Atlanta skyline. "We've had complaints," he said, not turning around. "Clients are pulling accounts, they think you're a liability." Nia's fists clenched, her nails biting into her palms. "I exposed a racist judge. I saved an innocent man. How is that a liability?" Grayson finally faced her, his expression hard. "You've upset the order, Nia. People don't like that." He slid a document across his desk, a formal warning letter. "One more misstep and you're out, or you can make this easy. Apologize publicly for disrupting the firm's reputation. Say it was a misunderstanding." Nia stared at the paper, her vision blurring with fury. An apology would mean betraying herself, spitting on Jamal's freedom, on the truth of Cobb's hatred. It would mean letting the system win, letting Grayson and his cowardice erase her fight. She thought of Marcus, his proud nod in court, and of her own resolve, forged through years of slights and slurs. "I won't apologize," she said, her voice low but unshakable. Grayson's eyes narrowed. "Then you're on thin ice. Get out." She left his office, her head high but her heart heavy. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into a new kind of hell. Her phone kept buzzing, now with texts from unknown numbers, some threatening, others mocking. One read, "You'll pay for embarrassing Cobb." She deleted it, but the words lingered, a warning of something darker. Back at her apartment, she locked the door, her hands trembling. The news was still replaying her courtroom stand, but the narrative was shifting. Pundits questioned her motives, calling her opportunistic. Her social media was a war zone, flooded with hate. She sank onto her couch, the weight of the day crushing her. She'd thought exposing Cobb would be the end, that justice would shield her. Instead, it had painted a target on her back. The firm's betrayal, Sarah's duplicity, the leaked emails, Grayson's ultimatum. It all swirled in her mind, a storm of injustice. She checked her email one last time, hoping for a lifeline, but found another anonymous message. It was a photo of her. Leaving the courthouse, her face circled in red with a single word. Next. Her breath caught, fear mingling with her rage. Cobb was down, but not out, and his allies were circling. She looked at her reflection in the dark TV screen, seeing a woman who'd fought and won, only to be betrayed by those she'd trusted. The victory she'd clutched that morning was gone, replaced by a chilling truth. This fight was just beginning, and the system she'd challenged was ready to crush her. Nia Caldwell's hands shook as she locked her apartment door, the Atlanta skyline glinting through her window like a taunting promise. It was 3 days since her demotion at Grayson and Holt, the sting of betrayal still raw, her stand against Judge Harlan Cobb's racist slur had made her a hero online. Her courtroom revelation as Chief Justice Marcus Caldwell's sister replayed on every major network. But the anonymous threat, that chilling photo with "Next" scrawled across, it had shattered her fleeting sense of triumph. She refused to cower. Nia opened her laptop, her jaw set, and drafted a statement for her social media, a bold rebuttal to the lies spreading about her. The blog post calling her a race baiter had gained traction, its twisted version of her leaked emails now shared by thousands. She typed fiercely, detailing Cobb's bigotry, her client Jamal's wrongful arrest and the firm's cowardice. Her followers, mostly black women and young activists, flooded her post with fire emojis and raised fists. By morning, her statement had 10,000 shares, and a local news station invited her for a live interview. Nia felt a spark of hope, a chance to reclaim her narrative. She spent the day preparing, practicing answers in her cracked bathroom mirror, her reflection showing a woman battered but unbowed. The studio was a flurry of lights and cables, the anchor a polished white woman named Claire who smiled too brightly. Nia sat under the hot lights, her blazer ironed, her voice steady as she recounted the courtroom clash. "Cobb called me unfit. Because of my skin," she said, her eyes locked on the camera. "I spoke truth and now they're punishing me." Claire nodded, but her questions veered sharp, probing Nia's motives and anger. Nia pushed back, calm but firm, and the segment ended with applause from the crew. She left the studio buoyed, believing she'd turned the tide. Her phone buzzed with texts from supporters, one from her brother Marcus, promising to dig into Cobb's allies. She walked to her car, the night air cool, feeling like she'd reclaimed her power. But as she drove home, her radio crackled and a breaking news alert cut through. A right-wing outlet, Patriot Voice, had released a video claiming to expose Nia. Her heart sank. She pulled over, opened her phone and watched in horror. The video was a masterclass in deception, splicing her interview with grainy footage of a black woman yelling at a protest, implying it was Nia. The narrator, a smug voice with a southern drawl, called her a professional victim who'd fabricated Cobb's slur for fame. They doctored her emails further, adding fake lines about hating white clients. The video had 500,000 views in 2 hours. Nia's throat tightened, her victory in the studio now a trap. She checked her social media, expecting support, but found a flood of hate. Strangers called her a liar, a fraud, worse. Her inbox overflowed with threats, one describing her apartment in eerie detail. 3rd floor, blue curtains, easy to climb. Her address had been leaked, doxed by Patriot Voice's followers. She sped home, her pulse hammering, and double-locked her door. The hate mail had escalated, physical now, stuffed under her door. Envelopes held printed slurs, photos of her, face with crosshairs drawn on. One note scrawled in red ink read, "Leave Atlanta or bleed." Nia's hands trembled as she swept them into a trash bag, her apartment no longer a sanctuary, but a target. She called Marcus, her voice shaking, but his line went to voicemail. She tried the police, reporting the threats, but the officer's tone was cold, dismissive. "Sounds like you stirred up trouble, ma'am," he said before hanging up. Nia sank to her floor, the weight of isolation crushing her. The world had cheered her 3 days ago. Now it wanted her silenced. She forced herself to check the news, hoping for a counter-narrative, but Patriot Voice's lies dominated. A pundit on a cable show questioned her sanity, another her dangerous agenda. Her firm's website had removed her bio, erasing her existence. She thought of Grayson's ultimatum, his demand for an apology, and realized this was no coincidence. Cobb, though suspended, was pulling strings, his influence a venom seeping through the city. Nia's resolve hardened. She wouldn't let them break her. She booked a hotel room under a fake name, packed a bag, and slipped out at midnight, her hoodie pulled low. But as she reached the street, a crowd gathered, not supporters but a mob. 50 people, mostly white, faces twisted with rage, held signs reading, "Liar" and "Go back." They chanted slurs, their voices a wall of hate. Nia froze, her car keys slippery in her sweat-soaked hand. Someone threw a bottle, glass shattering at her feet. Another hurled a rock, grazing her shoulder. She sprinted back to her building, the mob's screams chasing her. Inside, she barricaded her door with a chair, her breath ragged. The chanting grew louder, now at her building's entrance. She peeked through her blinds, seeing torches, actual torches, flickering in the dark. The mob wasn't random. It was organized, fueled by Patriot Voice's lies and Cobb's vendetta. Nia's phone died, cutting her off from help. She grabbed a kitchen knife, her hands shaking, and stood by the door, listening as footsteps echoed in the hall. A fist pounded on her door, a voice snarling, "We know you're in there!" Her heart thundered, fear and fury colliding. She thought of Jamal's freedom, her brother's pride, the truth she'd fought for. This was their retaliation, Cobb's way of proving she'd never win. The pounding stopped, replaced by sirens, but Nia didn't relax. The police, she knew, weren't her allies. She stayed awake all night, knife in hand. The mob's chants burned into her mind. By dawn, they'd dispersed, leaving spray-painted slurs on her building's walls. Nia checked her laptop, now her only lifeline, and saw the video's views. Had hit 2 million. Her name was trending, but not for justice, for infamy. She emailed Marcus begging for help, but the reply bounced back, his account disabled. Panic clawed at her. Cobb's reach was deeper than she'd imagined, a machine of hate she couldn't outrun. She thought of her interview, how she'd felt invincible, and laughed bitterly. That Nia was gone, replaced by a woman hunted, vilified, alone. But giving up wasn't in her blood. She opened a new social media account, anonymous this time, and typed a single line. "They lie, but I'll fight." She hit post, her fingers trembling, knowing it was a spark in a powder keg. Comment number 1. If you believe Nia deserves justice, hit like and subscribe to follow her fight, because the truth is worth it. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? Nia Caldwell's breath hitched as she slipped into a dingy motel room on the outskirts of Atlanta, the neon sign outside flickering like a dying heartbeat. It was 5 days since the mob's torches lit up her apartment building, their slurs still ringing in her ears. The Patriot Voice video, with its doctored lies, had turned her into a national villain, her name a hashtag for hate. She'd abandoned her apartment, her phone, her life, moving under the cover of night to avoid Cobb's wrath. Judge Harlan Cobb, though suspended, was a ghost in the machine, his influence fueling the threats that followed her. Nia's anonymous post, "They lie, but I'll fight," had sparked a small underground following, but it wasn't enough. She needed real help, someone with clout to take on Cobb's network. Her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, was unreachable, his email disabled, his office stonewalling her calls. She felt like a fugitive in her own city, her paralegal badge now a relic of a life stolen. But a glimmer of hope arrived in an encrypted message from Lena Harper, a prominent black activist, known for suing corrupt officials. Lena's profile was a beacon, founder of Justice Now, a non-profit that had toppled racist cops and judges. Her message was direct. "I saw your post. I can help. Meet me tomorrow." Nia's heart leapt, a lifeline in the dark. She researched. Lena, finding speeches that echoed her own rage, lawsuits that mirrored her fight. For the first time in days she slept, dreaming of a courtroom where Cobb would face her, not as a victim but as a warrior. The next morning, Nia took 3 buses to a coffee shop in Decatur, her hoodie pulled low, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Lena was waiting in a corner booth, her locks swept into a bun, her presence commanding. She slid Nia a burner phone, her voice low. "Cobb's a monster, but he's not untouchable. I've got lawyers ready to sue him for defamation, civil rights violations, the works." Nia's shoulders relaxed, the weight of isolation lifting. She shared everything, the courtroom slur, the leaked emails, the mob, the threats. Lena listened, her eyes sharp, jotting notes. "We'll need your evidence," she said. "Every email, every text, every video." Nia hesitated, her trust battered by Sarah's betrayal at the firm, but Lena's reputation was ironclad. She handed over a USB drive, packed with screenshots and recordings, her proof of Cobb's vendetta. Lena smiled, promising a press conference in 3 days to announce the lawsuit. Nia left the meeting buoyant, her step lighter. She checked into a new motel, using cash, and spent the day rebuilding her resolve. Lena's team sent updates, confirming, They'd filed the suit against Cobb, naming his allies in the media and police. The case hit the news, with anchors debating Nia's comeback. Her underground followers grew, sharing hashtags like Stand With Nia. She dared to believe she was turning the tide, that Lena's firepower could break Cobb's grip. The press conference was set for a community centre in West End, a black neighbourhood far from Cobb's reach. Nia arrived early, her heart pounding with hope. The room buzzed with reporters, activists and locals, their applause warming her like sunlight. Lena took the stage, her voice booming. Nia Caldwell is a hero, targeted by a racist system. We're suing Harlan Cobb for $10 million, and we won't stop until he's in chains. Nia stood beside her, tears prickling, feeling invincible. The crowd chanted her name, and for a moment she was no longer the hunted, but the hunter. But as the event ended, Nia noticed Lena whispering to a man in a suit, his face hidden. A chill ran through her. She brushed it off, blaming paranoia, and headed to her motel, replaying the cheers in her mind. That night, her burner phone pinged with a news alert. A leak had hit the press detailing her lawsuit strategy down to the evidence on her USB. The article, posted by Patriot Voice, mocked her as desperate and delusional, claiming her evidence was fabricated. Nia's stomach churned. Only Lena's team had that USB. She called Lena, her voice shaking, but the line was dead. Panic set in. She opened her laptop, searching for answers, and found a buried blog post. Lena Harper, sued 2 years ago for funneling donor funds to shady PACs. The case was dropped, but the accusation lingered. Nia's blood ran cold. Had she trusted another traitor? Before she could process it, sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed through her motel curtains. A megaphone blared, "Nia! Caldwell, come out with your hands up." Her heart stopped. She peeked outside, seeing a dozen cops, guns drawn, SWAT vests gleaming. They weren't here to talk. She grabbed her bag, but the door splintered open, officers storming in. "On the ground!" they screamed. Nia dropped, her cheek pressed to the grimy carpet, as cuffs snapped around her wrists. The lead officer, a burly man with a smirk, leaned close. "You're under arrest for stealing court documents." Nia's mind reeled. The charge was absurd, her evidence legally hers, but the officer's eyes gleamed with malice. They dragged her outside, cameras flashing from news vans already parked. Neighbors gawked, phones raised, as she was shoved into a squad car. The precinct was a blur of fluorescent lights and sneering faces. In interrogation, a detective tossed a folder on the table, photos of stolen files Nia had never seen. "Found these in your motel," he lied, his grin daring her to fight. She realized the truth. Lena had betrayed her, leaking the USB to Cobb's allies who'd tipped the police. The lawsuit, the press conference, it was all a trap to discredit her, to paint her as a criminal. Nia's hands trembled, not with fear but rage. She'd trusted Lena, poured her hope into a snake. The detective leaned in, his breath sour. "Confess or it's 5 years." Nia stared him down, her voice steady. "I'm innocent." He laughed, slamming the folder shut. They booked her. Her mugshot snapped under harsh lights, her name now tied to theft on every news ticker. In her cell, the concrete walls closed in, the clang of bars echoing her betrayal. She thought of Marcus, still unreachable, and her followers, who'd see her as a fraud. Lena's face flashed in her mind, that calculated smile at the press conference. Cobb had played her perfectly, using Lena to tighten the noose. Nia's evidence, her last weapon, was gone, twisted into a lie. She sank onto the cot, her body aching but her mind raced. She'd been a paralegal, a fighter, a sister who'd shamed a judge. This cell wouldn't break her. She scratched a tally into the wall, 1 mark for each betrayal. Sarah, Grayson, Lena. Cobb's name would be next. She closed her eyes, plotting her next move, knowing the system wasn't done with her yet. The lawsuit was dead, her reputation in tatters, but Nia Caldwell was alive, and that was enough, for now. Nia Caldwell's wrists ached, the cold steel cuffs from her arrest still a ghost on her skin, as she sat on the hard cot in her Atlanta cell. The air was thick with mildew, the walls scratched with names of others who'd been trapped here. It was 7 days since Lena Harper's betrayal, the activist's false promise of a lawsuit against Judge Harlan Cobb, now a bitter memory. Nia's arrest for stealing court documents, a lie planted by Cobb's allies, had plastered her face, across every news channel, her name tied to a crime she didn't commit. The precinct's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a constant reminder of her new reality. She'd been strip-searched, her dignity stripped alongside her clothes, and shoved into this 6x8 cage. Her underground followers, the ones who'd rallied behind her anonymous post, were silent now, likely believing the headlines branding her a thief. Nia's heart clenched at the thought of her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, still unreachable, his silence a wound deeper than the cuffs. She'd fought for truth, exposed Cobb's racist slur in court, saved her client Jamal, only to be buried by a system that rewarded hate. But Nia wasn't broken. She'd spent her first night pacing, plotting, her paralegal mind dissecting every move Cobb had made. Lena's betrayal was a chess play, sacrificing Nia to protect Cobb's empire. She scratched another tally into the wall, joining Sarah, Grayson, and Lena. Cobb's mark loomed largest, a promise she'd keep. A guard's boots clomped down the hall, stopping at her cell. "Caldwell, you got a visitor," he grunted, his eyes narrowing with disdain. Nia stood, smoothing her orange jumpsuit, her pulse quickening. The guard led her to a visitation room, a grey box with a scratched plexiglass divider. On the other side sat Marcus, his suit crisp, his face etched with worry. Nia's breath caught, relief flooding her. He picked up the phone, his voice low but fierce. "I'm getting you out, Nia. The theft charge is garbage. I've got a judge who'll dismiss it." Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back, nodding. Marcus detailed his plan: a habeas corpus petition, a press leak to expose the frame-up, a direct appeal to the governor. "Cobb's allies are deep, but I'm deeper," he said, a rare smile breaking through. Nia clung to his words, her hope reigniting. They talked for 20 minutes, mapping out her defense, until the guard banged on the door, ending the visit. Back in her cell, Nia felt lighter, the weight of isolation lifting. Marcus was her anchor, the one person the system couldn't touch. She slept that night, dreaming of freedom, of facing Cobb again, this time with Marcus at her side. The next morning, a new judge, a woman with a no-nonsense glare, heard Nia's case. Marcus's petition worked like a charm. The prosecution's evidence, those stolen documents, crumbled under scrutiny, revealed as forgeries. The judge dismissed the charge, her gavel a thunderclap of justice. Nia walked out of the courthouse, the August sun blinding, her jumpsuit swapped for jeans and a t-shirt Marcus had brought. Reporters swarmed, but Marcus shielded her, his armor fortress. "My sister's innocent," he declared, cameras flashing. Nia's heart soared, her victory a middle finger to Cobb's machine. She hugged Marcus, whispering thanks, believing the worst was behind her. They drove to a safe house, a small rental in Buckhead, where Nia could regroup. She checked her burner phone, seeing messages from her underground followers, a few still loyal, cheering her release. She posted a cryptic update. Free but not done. The response was small but fierce, a spark of support in the dark. She and Marcus planned their next move, a counterstrike to expose Cobb's network, starting with Lena's betrayal. Nia felt invincible, her brother's power a shield, her resolve a blade. But as dusk settled, a guard from the jail, a wiry man named Tucker, appeared at the safe house, his uniform swapped for civvies. Nia tensed, but he raised his hands, claiming he was a whistleblower. "Cobb's got eyes in the jail," he said, his voice low. "I heard things, I can help." Marcus was skeptical, but Nia, desperate for allies, listened. Tucker claimed a guard captain was on Cobb's payroll, planting evidence to keep Nia locked up. He offered names, dates, recordings. Nia's instincts screamed caution, but her need for proof overrode them. She agreed to meet him the next day. That night she barely slept, her mind racing with possibilities. Tucker's intel could be the key to dismantling Cobb's empire. At dawn she slipped out, meeting Tucker in a deserted park. He handed her a flash drive, his eyes darting. "This is everything," he said, then vanished into the trees. Naya returned to the safe house, plugging the drive into her laptop, her heart pounding. But the files were empty, a decoy. Before she could react, sirens wailed and a SWAT team stormed the house. "Nia Caldwell, freeze!" they shouted, rifles aimed. She dropped the laptop, her hands raised, confusion choking her. The same guard Captain Tucker mentioned, a hulking man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward holding a baggie of white powder. "Found this in your cell," he lied, his smirk venomous. Nia's blood ran cold. The captain claimed she'd assaulted him during a routine search, pointing to a bruise on his jaw, clearly self-inflicted. She protested, her voice rising, but the SWAT team tackled her, cuffs snapping tight. They dragged her back to the jail, the same cell, the same buzzing lights. In interrogation, the captain tossed a report on the table, accusing her of drug, possession and felony assault, a 5-year sentence looming. "You should have stayed quiet," he sneered. Nia realized the truth. Tucker was a plant, sent by Cobb to lure her into a trap. The whistleblower had set her up, the empty flash drive a pretext for the raid. The captain's story hit the news, her mugshot back on every screen, now captioned, "Repeat offender." Tabloids screamed, "Caldwell's fall," painting her as a violent thug. The assault charge twisted into a saga of her rage. Her followers dwindled, the spark of support snuffed out. In her cell, Nia's fists clenched, her nails drawing blood. Cobb had struck again, using the jail itself as his weapon. The guard captain's bruise, the planted drugs, it was all a script written by a judge who'd never forgive her for humiliating him. She thought of Marcus, his promise of justice, now a distant echo. The cell door clanged shut, the sound final, but Nia's mind burned. She'd been freed once, only to be caged again, harder, crueler. She scratched another tally into the wall, the captain's name joining Cobb's. Her eyes narrowed, her breath steadying. This wasn't the end. She'd find a way, even if it meant tearing the jail apart. Comment number 1 if you're outraged. By this injustice, hit like and subscribe to see Nia's next move. Because the system's claws are tightening, can she escape a trap designed to bury her? Nia Caldwell's eyes burned as she scratched another tally into the concrete wall of her Atlanta cell, the rough edge of a stolen spoon carving her defiance. The air was stale, heavy with the stink of bleach and despair. 9 days had passed since the guard captain's frame-up, his planted drugs and fake assault charge pinning her with a 5-year sentence. Her mugshot, splashed across tabloids, branded her a violent thug, erasing the truth of her stand against Judge Harlan Cobb's racist slur. The jail's fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of wasps, mocking her stolen freedom. Nia's underground followers had vanished, her anonymous post drowned in a sea of lies. Lena Harper's betrayal, the rigged lawsuit, the mob at her apartment, all orchestrated by Cobb, had left her isolated, a pariah in a city she'd once called home. Her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, was her last hope, but his silence since her arrest gnawed at her. She paced the 6x8 cell, her orange jumpsuit chafing, her mind a storm of plans and rage. She'd been a paralegal, a fighter who'd saved her client Jamal from Cobb's crooked gavel. She wouldn't rot here. A guard's keys jangled, and the cell door creaked open. "Caldwell, move!" a new guard barked, her tone clipped but not cruel. Nia's pulse quickened as she was led to a holding room, where Marcus waited, his suit rumpled, his face a map of exhaustion. He stood, pulling her into a hug through the guard's glare. "I've got you," he whispered, his voice a lifeline. Over lukewarm coffee, Marcus explained his move. He'd leaned on a federal judge, an old law school ally, to review Nia's case. The assault charge, built on the captain's lies, was flimsy, and the planted drugs lacked a chain of custody. "The judge is tossing it," Marcus said, his eyes fierce. "You're out today." Nia's chest loosened, a sob caught in her throat. She'd dreamed of this, of breathing free air, of facing Cobb again. Marcus outlined their next step. A quiet investigation into Cobb's network, starting with the guard captain and Lena's pack ties. "We'll go public when we've got ironclad proof," he said. Nia nodded, her hope reigniting, fragile but real. By noon, the federal judge signed the dismissal, citing prosecutorial misconduct. Nia walked out of the jail, the August heat wrapping her like a promise. Marcus drove her to a new safe house, a modest condo in Midtown, its windows tinted for privacy. She showered, washing away the jail's grime, and slipped into clothes Marcus had bought, a simple blouse and jeans that felt like armor. Over dinner, they mapped their counterstrike. Marcus had hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Ellis, to dig into Cobb's finances. Nia suggested tracking the captain's bank records, suspecting payoffs. They worked late, fueled by coffee and fury, their bond a fortress against Cobb's reach. Nia checked her burner phone, finding a few loyal followers still posting "Stand with Nia." She smiled, feeling like a general rallying troops. For the first time in weeks, she slept without fear, dreaming of a courtroom where Cobb would kneel. But dawn brought a storm. Nia woke to her phone buzzing, a news alert screaming "Chief Justice scandal." Her stomach dropped. She opened the link, her hands shaking. A hacker, claiming to be Truth Seeker, had leaked emails from Marcus's account, accusing him of taking bribes to sway cases. The emails were fake, laced with just enough truth, like Marcus's meetings with judges, to seem real. Nia recognized Cobb's fingerprints, his vengeance now aimed at her family. Marcus stormed in, his face ashen, clutching his phone. "They've locked my accounts," he said, his voice tight. "The governor's calling for an ethics probe." Nia's heart sank. The safe house's TV blared, pundits dissecting Marcus's corruption, some linking it to Nia's crime spree. Her release, meant to be her salvation, had triggered Cobb's deadliest blow yet. By midday, the threats began. Nia's burner phone pinged with texts, not from followers but strangers. "Your brother's done and you're next." Another included a photo of Marcus's house, his wife Tanya's car circled in red. Nia's nephew, 8-year-old Caleb, was at school and a new message arrived. "Blue backpack, 3rd grade. Easy target." Nia's blood ran cold. She and Marcus raced to the school, finding Caleb safe but shaken, his classroom door spray-painted with a slur. The principal, a nervous white woman, claimed it was random vandalism, but her eyes darted, avoiding Nia's glare. Marcus pulled Caleb out, sending him and Tanya to a hotel under aliases. Nia's safe house was no longer safe. They moved to a new location, a cramped apartment in East Point, its walls thin enough to hear the neighbors' fights. Nia's hope, so bright at her release, was crumbling. Cobb wasn't just after her. He wanted her family's blood. She and Marcus worked through the night, Ellis feeding them leads on the hacker, a ghost tied to Cobb's media allies. But every step felt like wading through quicksand. Nia's followers dwindled further, the scandal tainting Marcus's name and hers by extension. She posted a defiant update. "They can't silence us." But the replies were sparse, drowned by bots spewing hate. At 3 in the morning, a blast shook the city. Nia bolted upright, the apartment's windows rattling. Marcus's phone rang, Tanya's voice screaming through static. A car bomb had detonated outside their hotel, shattering windows. The explosion meant for them. Tanya and Caleb were unharmed, hidden in a different room, but the message was clear. Cobb played for keeps. Nia ran to the bathroom, splashing water on her face, her reflection a stranger's, hollow-eyed but fierce. The bomb wasn't random. It was Cobb's retaliation, his way of punishing Marcus's intervention. News trucks swarmed the hotel, reporters speculating about gang violence, ignoring the slur scrawled on Tanya's car. Nia's release had been a spark, and Cobb had answered with fire. She thought of her jail cell, the captain's smirk, Lena's lies, the mob's torches. Each blow was worse, each trap tighter. Marcus sat on the couch, head in hands, his power useless against Cobb's chaos. Nia knelt beside him, her voice steady. "We keep fighting. For Caleb, for Tanya, for us." He nodded, but his eyes were haunted, the weight of his title now a noose. Nia's mind raced, piecing together their next move. Ellis had a lead on the hacker's IP, a thread to pull. She clung to it, a sliver of defiance in a world burning down. Cobb had struck her family, but she'd strike back, even if it meant walking through hell. Her tally grew in her mind, the bomb a new mark, Cobb's name pulsing like a wound. She stood, ready to hunt, knowing the next blow would be bloodier. Nia Caldwell's boots crunched on broken glass as she slipped into a boarded-up warehouse on Atlanta's west side, the air thick with dust and desperation. It was 10 days since the car bomb targeting her brother Marcus's family, the explosions, echo still a knot in her chest. Judge Harlan Cobb's reach had turned her life into a war zone, his racist vendetta escalating from courtroom slurs to lethal strikes. The jails planted drugs, Lena's betrayal, the mob's tortures, and now the bomb had stripped Nia of everything. Her job, her home, her safety. Marcus, the Chief Justice, was battered, his reputation shredded by fake bribery leaks. His wife, Tanya, and son Caleb, hidden in a new safe house. Nia was a ghost now, her face too toxic for public view, her underground followers reduced to a whisper online. But surrender wasn't in her blood. She'd fled the East Point apartment after the bomb holing up in a network of abandoned buildings, guided by a tip from Ellis, Marcus's private investigator. Ellis had connected her with Zara, a rogue journalist who ran a dark web blog exposing corruption. Zara was a wiry black woman with a shaved head and a laptop that never left her side, her safe house a maze of servers and burner phones. Nia met her at midnight, the warehouse's shadows swallowing their footsteps. Zara's voice was sharp, no nonsense. Cobb's untouchable on the surface, but his money's dirty. Bribes, shell companies, the works. Nia's pulse quickened, her paralegal instincts kicking in. She handed Zara a scrap of paper, the guard captain's name and bank details, pieced together from jail whispers. Zara nodded, cracking her knuckles. We dig, we leak, we burn him. They worked through the night, Nia's eyes stinging from the glare of Zara's screen. By dawn, they'd unearthed a trail, Cobb's campaign funds, funneled through a PAC linked to Patriot Voice, the outlet. That vilified Nia. The PAC paid off cops, reporters, even Lena Harper. Nia's heart raced, the proof a weapon she could wield. Zara hacked into a low-level account tied to the PAC, finding emails detailing payoffs to the guard captain who'd framed Nia. The emails named Cobb directly, his signature a digital noose. Nia felt victory within reach, a chance to gut Cobb's empire. She and Zara drafted a dossier, a 50-page beast of screenshots and bank records, and planned to leak it to the Atlanta Chronicle, a paper known for fearless exposés. Nia's fingers trembled as she typed a cover letter, signing it Truth. She imagined Cobb's face when the story broke, his smug grin collapsing like it had in court. Zara sent the dossier at noon, using a VPN to mask their location. Nia waited, crouched in the warehouse, her burner phone her only link to the world. Hours passed, the silence deafening. She checked Zara's blog, expecting a firestorm, but found nothing. Her stomach twisted. At dusk, Zara's laptop pinged. A message from a Chronicle editor. Story's dead. Source compromised. Nia's blood ran cold. Cobb's allies had intercepted the leak, their reach deeper than she'd feared. Zara's face hardened, her fingers flying over the keyboard, tracing the block. They've got someone inside the paper, she muttered. Nia's hope so bright that morning crumbled. She'd thought the dossier was her checkmate, but Cobb had countered before she'd moved. Zara's screen flickered, a new alert popping up. A Patriot Voice post claiming Caldwell's lies exposed, accusing Nia of forging the dossier. The post included a photo of her at the warehouse snapped hours ago. Nia's breath stopped. They were being watched. Zara slammed the laptop shut, grabbing her bag. We're burned, move. But the warehouse doors rattled, metal screeching as they were pried open. Footsteps thundered, heavy and deliberate. Nia's heart pounded, her eyes scanning for an exit. Zara pointed to a rusted ladder leading to a skylight, but before they could climb, a dozen men stormed in, their faces masked, swastika tattoos glinting on their arms. White supremacists, Cobb's foot soldiers. Their leader, a hulking figure with a buzz cut, sneered, "Caldwell, you're done." Nia grabbed a pipe from the floor, her knuckles white, but the men were faster. They swarmed, boots kicking, fists flying. Nia swung the pipe, cracking one man's jaw, but a fist slammed her temple, stars bursting in her vision. Zara screamed, tackled as she reached for a knife. The men beat Nia bloody, her ribs cracking, her lips splitting. She curled into a ball, shielding her head, her mind screaming for Marcus, for Caleb, for anyone. The leader doused the warehouse with gasoline, the stench choking her. "Cobb says burn!" he spat, flicking a lighter. Flames roared, licking the walls. Nia's lungs burned, her body screaming, but she crawled, dragging Zara's limp form toward a shattered window. The men laughed, thinking her dead, and fled. Nia hauled Zara through the glass, collapsing outside as the warehouse blazed, its heat searing her skin. Sirens wailed in the distance, too late. Zara coughed, alive but battered, her laptop ash. Nia's dossier, her proof, was gone, consumed by fire. Blood dripped from her brow, pooling on the asphalt, but her eyes burned with defiance. She'd escaped, barely, clutching a single USB, a backup Zara had slipped her. It held fragments of the dossier, a sliver of hope. Nia staggered to her feet, Zara leaning on her, the flames painting the night red. Cobb had sent a mob to kill her, his retaliation a new level of savagery. The Chronicle's betrayal, the dossier's failure, the attack. It was all his doing, a chessboard where she was always a move behind. She thought of her jail cell, the bomb, Lena's lies, each blow worse than the last. Her tally grew, the leader's face now etched beside Cobb's. She limped away, Zara's weight heavy, knowing nowhere was safe. The USB in her pocket was her last card, but playing it meant risking everything. She whispered to herself a vow, "I'm not done." Comment number 1 if you're raging at Cobb's cruelty, hit like and subscribe to see Nia's fight. Because justice isn't free. What do you do when the truth burns and the hunters close in? Nia Caldwell's ribs throbbed as she huddled in a derelict laundromat on Atlanta's south side, the hum of a broken dryer masking her ragged breaths. It was 12 days since the white supremacist mob torched the warehouse, their fists and... Flames, a brutal gift from Judge Harlan Cobb. Her face was bruised, her lips scabbed, but the USB in her pocket, a backup of Zara's dossier fragments, was her lifeline. Zara, the rogue journalist, nursed a sprained arm beside her, their safe house, reduced to ash. Cobb's vendetta had escalated beyond slurs and frame-ups, his network now a death machine targeting Nia's every move. The car bomb aimed at Marcus's family, the jails planted drugs, Lena's betrayal, all were steps in his dance of hate, each blow bloodier than the last. Nia's underground followers were ghosts, her brother Marcus a fugitive in his own right, his reputation gutted by fake leaks. She was alone, hunted, her paralegal life a distant memory. But the USB held a shard of Cobb's empire, emails tying, him to Patriot Voices bribes. Nia clung to it, her defiance a fire no mob could extinguish. Zara's burner laptop, salvaged from a hidden stash, glowed in the dim light. "We need more," Zara whispered, her voice hoarse. "Those emails are a start, but we need the heart of his money." Nia nodded, her mind racing. Cobb's power was in his cash, funneled through shell companies to cops, media, thugs. If she could expose it, she'd cripple him. Zara had a contact, a hacker named Ghost, who'd once breached a senator's server. Nia hesitated, her trust scarred by Lena's lies, but Ghost was their only shot. They sent an encrypted message, offering the USB's fragments as collateral. Ghost replied in hours, demanding a meet in a shuttered mall at dawn. Nia and Zara moved under cover of night, their hoodies blending with the shadows. The mall was a skeleton of cracked tiles and empty storefronts, its air stale with neglect. Ghost was a lanky figure in a ski mask, his voice distorted by a modulator. "Cobb's server is private, air-gapped," he said, tossing Nia a flash drive. "This has a worm. Plug it into his law firm's network and I'll do the rest." Nia's stomach twisted. Cobb's firm, Carbon Associates, was a fortress in downtown Atlanta, guarded by cameras and ex-cops. But the USB's emails had named the firm as a money hub. She took the drive, her fingers trembling, knowing this was a suicide run. Zara mapped the firm's layout, pulling blueprints from a dark web archive. Nia memorized every vent, every blind spot, her paralegal precision now a thief's tool. At midnight she slipped into a janitor's uniform, stolen from a dumpster, and approached the firm's back entrance. Her heart pounded as she swiped a cloned keycard, the lock clicking. Green. Inside, the halls were dark, the air humming with security systems. She crawled through a vent, her bruised ribs screaming, and dropped into a server room, its blue lights pulsing like a heartbeat. She plugged Ghost's drive into a terminal, praying it worked. The screen flashed, code streaming, and Ghost's voice crackled through an earpiece. "I'm in, 2 minutes." Nia held her breath, sweat beading as alarms stayed silent. Ghost pulled a ledger, a digital goldmine of Cobb's deals. Bribes to judges, payoffs to Patriot Voice, contracts for the mob that burned the warehouse. Nia's chest tightened with triumph. This was it, the blade to gut Cobb's empire. Ghost uploaded the ledger to a whistleblower site, The Blackout, known for untouchable leaks. Nia slipped out, the keycard her shield, and rejoined Zara at the laundromat. By dawn, The Blackout's post went viral, the ledger shared by millions. News anchors read its entries, their voices shaking. Harlan Cobb, linked to illegal payments. Nia watched on Zara's laptop, her split lip curling into a smile. She thought of Jamal's freedom, her courtroom stand, the tally on her cell wall. This was her checkmate, her proof to the world. She posted on her anonymous account, "Truth wins," and watched her followers surge, thousands chanting her name. She felt like a phoenix, rising from the ashes of Cobb's hate. But the victory was a mirage. 3 hours later, Zara's laptop froze, a red warning flashing. "System infected." Nia's burner phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Nice try, Caldwell." Her blood ran cold. Cobb's tech team, a shadow army of hackers, had countered Ghost's worm with a virus, scrubbing the ledger from the blackout. The site crashed, its servers fried, the leak erased like it never existed. Nia's followers posted screenshots, but Patriot Voice flooded the web with fakes, drowning the truth. Zara's screen flickered, showing a new horror. Nia's bank, accounts, her savings, her emergency fund, all frozen, flagged as fraudulent. She tried to log in, her fingers shaking, but the accounts were gone, her balance zero. A news alert popped up. Caldwell linked to financial fraud, claiming she'd laundered money for radical groups. The lie was absurd, but it stuck, her name now toxic to banks, employers, anyone. Nia's vision blurred, rage and despair colliding. She called Marcus, but his line was dead, his safe house compromised. Zara's contacts reported evictions from their own homes, collateral damage in Cobb's war. Nia grabbed her bag, the USB, now useless, and fled the laundromat, Zara trailing. They had nowhere to go, no money, no allies. The streets were a trap, Cobb's eyes everywhere. Nia's ribs ached, her bruises pulsing, but her mind screamed one truth. Cobb had planned this. The ledger's leak, her moment of triumph, was bait, luring her into his digital guillotine. He'd let her strike, then crushed her harder, stripping her last resources. She stumbled into an alley, rain soaking her hoodie, and sank against a dumpster. Zara crouched beside her, silent, their breath clouding in the cold. Nia's apartment, her job, her savings, her family's safety, all were ashes now. Cobb's retaliation was a masterstroke, leaving her homeless, penniless, a fugitive in a city that hated her. She thought of the warehouse flames, the jails. Cuffs, the bombs roar. Each blow was a step up, a new level of cruelty. Her tally grew, the virus a mark beside Cobb's name, but her hands were empty, her weapons gone. She whispered to Zara, "He thinks I'm done." Zara's eyes met hers, a flicker of fire. "Are you?" Nia shook her head, her jaw set. The rain washed blood from her lip, but her resolve was iron. She'd lost everything, but she was alive, and that was enough. Cobb's message, "You're done," burned in her mind, a challenge she'd answer. She stood, her legs shaking, and walked into the night, a plan forming, reckless and raw. The system wanted her erased, but Nia Caldwell was a storm, and storms don't die quietly. Nia Caldwell's shoes squelched in the Atlanta rain, her hoodie soaked as she ducked into a back alley, the city's pulse a distant roar. 14 days had passed since Judge Harlan Cobb's tech team obliterated her counterstrike, their virus, wiping her leaked ledger and freezing her bank accounts. Homeless, penniless, and hunted, Nia was a shadow. her paralegal life erased by Cobb's relentless hate. The warehouse fire, the jail's frame-ups, the car bomb targeting her brother Marcus's family, each blow was a calculated escalation, Cobb's response to her courtroom defiance. Her stand against his racist slur, her revelation as Marcus's sister, had sparked this war, and now she was losing. Zara, her rogue journalist ally, limped beside her. Their last safe house a memory after Cobb's hackers traced them. Naya's underground followers were silent, drowned by Patriot Voice's lies, branding her a fraud. Marcus, the chief. Justice was a ghost, his reputation buried under fake scandals, his wife Tanya and son Caleb hiding in a new safe house. Nia's body ached, bruises from the supremacist mob's beating still tender, but her mind was a blade, sharpened by betrayal. Lena's false lawsuit, the guard captain's planted drugs, the torched dossier, Cobb's virus, each was a mark on her mental tally, his name the darkest. She clutched a stolen burner phone, its battery low, her last link to the world. A single message blinked from an unknown sender. Hope's not dead, find Sanctuary. Nia's heart flickered. Sanctuary was a rumor, a black community center in Vine City, a haven for those the system crushed. She and Zara headed there, weaving through alleys, avoiding cops who knew her face from mugshots. The center was a squat brick building, its windows boarded graffiti preaching resistance. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and sweat, voices humming with purpose. A woman, Amara, greeted them, her braids tight, her eyes sharp. "We know you, Nia. Your fight's ours." Amara ran the center, a hub for activists, ex-cons, mothers, all black, all defiant. Nia's chest warmed, the isolation of weeks lifting. Amara showed them a wall of photos, faces of those felled by cops, judges, mobs. Nia's story, her courtroom stand, was legend here. She shared her truth. Cobb's slur, the leaks, the bomb, the fire. The room listened, fists clenched, some crying, others nodding. Amara stood. "We rally. For you. For us." Nia's eyes stung, hope a fragile spark. The center planned a march, 3,000 strong, to City Hall, demanding Cobb's arrest. Nia helped organize, her paralegal skills a weapon again, drafting signs, mapping routes. She met Keisha, a mother whose son died in custody, and Jamal, her old client, now free but scarred. Their stories fueled her, their rage her own. The march was set for dawn, a public strike to revive her leaked dossier's truth. Nia posted on her anonymous account, "We rise," and watched it spread, her followers rekindling, sharing the rally's call. She slept on a cot, surrounded by strangers who felt like kin, dreaming of a crowd drowning Cobb's lies. Dawn broke, and Vine City pulsed with life. 3,000 marched, Nia at the front, Amara and Keisha beside her. Signs read, "Justice for Nia," and "Cobb must fall." Drums beat, voices chanted, "No more lies." Nia's heart soared, the crowd a tide washing her clean. They reached City Hall, its steps gleaming white, a symbol of power she'd once trusted. She took a megaphone, her voice steady. "Cobb tried to bury me. He failed. We're here. And we're loud." The crowd roared, fists raised, cameras rolling. Nia felt reborn, a warrior, not a victim. She passed the mic to Jamal, who spoke of his arrest, then Keisha, her grief a blade. For hours they held the steps, the city watching. Nia believed this was it, the moment Cobb's empire cracked. But the air shifted, a murmur rippling through the crowd. Men in hoodies, faces hard, slipped among the marchers, their eyes wrong, not allies. Nia's stomach twisted. She'd seen that look in the warehouse mob. Amara grabbed her arm, whispering, "Cobb's plants." Before Nia could act, a bottle flew, shattering on the steps. Shouts erupted, not of unity, but chaos. The hooded men shoved marchers, sparking fights. A trash can blazed, smoke choking the air. Nia screamed, "Stay together!" But the crowd fractured, panic spreading. Sirens wailed and riot police surged, batons raised, gas masks gleaming. They kettled the march, penning thousands in a tightening circle. Tear gas hissed, burning Nia's eyes, her throat raw. She coughed, pulling Keisha through the haze, searching for Amara. The police swung, cracking skulls, dragging bodies. Nia's hope, so bright hours ago, drowned in screams. The hooded men vanished, their job done, leaving the march a riot in the news. Eyes. Cameras caught Nia's face, bloodied from a baton graze, her fists raised. By dusk, the police arrested her, zip ties cutting her wrists, charging her with inciting violence. The precinct was a rerun of her jail nightmare, but worse, her name now a synonym for chaos. Mugshots flashed again, headlines screaming Caldwell's riot. Amara and Keisha were nabbed too, their center raided, labeled a radical hub. Nia sat in a holding cell, her body aching, her mind reeling. Cobb had infiltrated the rally, his agitators turning her triumph into a trap. The crowd's power, her rebirth, was twisted into proof of her danger. She thought of the warehouse, flames, the frozen accounts, each retaliation a heavier boot on her neck. Her tally grew, the agitators' faces joining Cobb's, but her hands were bound, her voice caged. She whispered, "Not over," her breath a vow. The cell door loomed, but Nia's fight burned, a spark in the dark. Comment number 1 if you're furious at this betrayal, hit like and subscribe to see Nia's stand, because the system plays dirty. How do you fight when your own people are turned against you? Nia Caldwell's wrists stung from the zip ties as she sat in the Atlanta holding cell, the metallic clang of bars still echoing from her latest arrest. 16 days had passed since the rally at City Hall, where Judge Harlan Cobb's planted agitators turned her triumph into a riot. The charge of inciting violence plastered her bloodied face across every news ticker, twisting her fight for justice into a caricature of chaos. Her body ached from the baton graze, her spirit battered by the betrayal of the crowd she'd led. Cobb's vendetta, sparked by her courtroom defiance of his racist slur, had escalated into a relentless assault, leaked emails, a torched warehouse, a car bomb, frozen accounts, and now this. Nia's underground followers were gone, her brother Marcus's reputation in tatters, his family hidden from Cobb's wrath. The Sanctuary Community Center, her brief haven, was shuttered, its leaders like Amara and Keisha jailed alongside her. Nia's paralegal skills, once her shield, were useless in this concrete cage, but her resolve burned, a fire Cobb couldn't douse. She scratched a mental tally, the agitators' sneers joining Cobb's name, each mark a vow to fight. A guard's boot scuffed the floor, her voice sharp. "Caldwell, you're sprung." Nia's heart leapt, suspicion mingling with hope. She was led to a processing room, where Marcus waited, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot but fierce. He pulled her into a hug, his whisper urgent. "I pulled every string, Nia. You're free and we're hitting back." Her throat tightened, relief a fragile thread. Over stale coffee in a precinct break room, Marcus explained his move. He'd leveraged his last favors, convincing a sympathetic DA to drop the riot charge for lack of evidence. The agitators' role was too murky, the police's kettle too sloppy to hold her. Marcus had hired a new lawyer, Elena Vasquez, a bulldog known for dismantling corrupt judges. "We're suing Cobb directly," Marcus said, his voice low. "Civil rights violations, defamation, conspiracy. We've got fragments of your dossier. Enough to start." Nia's pulse quickened, the USB's surviving emails a faint pulse of power. Elena, a Latina woman with a scar on her cheek, met them at a diner, her briefcase stuffed with filings. She laid out the plan, a federal lawsuit, high profile, aiming for $10 million and Cobb's disbarment. Nia nodded, her hope reigniting, fragile but sharp. They moved to a new safe house, a loft in Grant Park, its windows covered with blackout curtains. Nia helped Elena draft the complaint, her paralegal mind slicing through legalese, citing Cobb's slur, the Patriot voice lies, the warehouse attack. Marcus leaked the lawsuit to a friendly reporter, and by dusk, headlines blared, "Caldwell, so's disgraced judge." The story gained traction, anchors debating Cobb's corruption, some daring to mention the dossier's fragments. Nia's anonymous account flickered with life, a few followers reposting "Stand with Nia." She felt a surge like the rally's roar, believing justice was near. Elena coached her for court, prepping her to face Cobb's legal team, a pack of sharks led by his partner Victor Klein. Nia memorized her testimony, her voice steady in mock cross-examinations, ready to bury Cobb. The trial was set for a federal courthouse, its marble halls a far cry from Cobb's county domain. Nia walked in on day one, her blazer crisp, Marcus and Elena flanking her. The gallery was packed, reporters scribbling, cameras banned but tension thick. Cobb sat across the room, his smirk faint but venomous, his suspension no barrier to his pull. The judge, a stern black woman named Lorraine Hayes, gave Nia a nod, her impartiality a rare gift. Eleanor's opening statement was a blade, detailing Cobb's campaign of hate, from the courtroom slur to the bomb. Nia testified, her voice clear, recounting every blow. Lena's betrayal, the mob, the frozen accounts. The gallery murmured, jurors leaning forward, and Nia felt invincible, her truth a hammer. Eleanor submitted the USB's emails, their authenticity verified by a forensic expert. For 3 days the case built, witnesses like Jamal testifying to Cobb's bias, a hacker tying Patriot voice to his pack. Nia dared to dream of victory, of Cobb in cuffs, her family safe. But on day 4 the air shifted. Klein, Cobb's lawyer, stood, his smile oily. He moved to dismiss the emails, claiming chain of custody issues. Nia's stomach twisted. Eleanor objected, but Judge Hayes called a recess, her face unreadable. Nia whispered to Marcus, "Something's wrong." He squeezed her hand, but his eyes were uneasy. The recess stretched, whispers rippling through the courthouse. When court resumed, Hayes returned, her voice cold. "The emails are inadmissible. Insufficient authentication." Nia's heart sank. The USB's fragments, her last proof, erased. Elena argued, citing the forensic report, but Hayes cut her off, her ruling final. The gallery gasped, reporters typing furiously. Nia's mind raced, smelling Cobb's hand. Klein smirked, producing a new motion, accusing Nia of perjury for fabricated evidence. The lie was absurd, but it landed, jurors frowning. Nia stood, her voice rising. "This is a setup. Cobb's bribing someone." The gallery erupted, Hayes banging her gavel. "Ms. Caldwell, sit down." But Nia couldn't, her rage spilling. "He's rigging this, just like everything." Hayes's eyes narrowed. "You're in contempt." Bailiffs moved, their hands rough, tackling Nia to the floor. Her cheek hit the marble, cuffs snapping tight, her screams echoing. "He's a liar!" They dragged her out, Marcus shouting, Elena frozen. Cobb's grin burned into her. A predator, savoring prey. The holding cell was a steel box, its walls ice cold. Nia's wrists bled, the cuffs too tight, her contempt charge a new chain. News vans outside screamed, "Caldwell's meltdown," twisting her outburst into proof of guilt. The lawsuit, her glimmer of hope, was gutted, Hayes' ruling a death blow. Nia realized the truth. Cobb had bribed the jury foreman, or Hayes herself, rigging the trial like he'd rigged her life. The email's dismissal, Klein's motion, her arrest, it was a choreographed ambush, Cobb's retaliation for her daring to sue. She thought of the rally's tear gas, the warehouse flames, each trap tighter, crueler. Her tally grew, Hayes's. Name a question mark beside Cobb's, but her voice was caged, her body pinned. Marcus's face, his helpless shout, haunted her. The safe house, Elena's plan, the crowd's hope, all were ashes. Nia curled on the cell floor, her breath shallow, but her mind burned. She'd stood in that courtroom, spoken truth, and been crushed for it, but crushed wasn't dead. She whispered, "Not yet," her vow a spark in the dark. The cell door loomed, but Nia Caldwell was a storm, and storms don't kneel. Nia Caldwell's breath fogged in the damp Atlanta air as she crouched in a storm drain, the city's underbelly her only refuge. 18 days had passed since the courtroom ambush, where Judge Harlan Cobb's rigged trial crushed her lawsuit and landed her in cuffs for contempt. The federal courthouse, once a beacon of hope, had become a trap, with Judge Lorraine Hayes dismissing Nia's evidence and bailiffs dragging her out screaming. Cobb's vendetta, ignited by Nia's defiance of his racist slur, had escalated into a merciless onslaught. Leaked emails, torched warehouses, car bombs, and now a bribed jury. Nia was a fugitive, her face a fixture on wanted posters, her inciting violence and contempt charges painting her as a public enemy. Her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, was a shadow, his family hidden, his power neutered by Cobb's lies. The Sanctuary Community Center was raided, her allies like Amara and Keisha silenced. Nia's paralegal life, her home, her savings, were ashes, but her resolve was iron, forged in betrayal. Lena's false promises, the guard captain's frame-up, the rally's sabotage, each was a mark on her mental tally. Cobb's name the blackest. She'd escaped the holding cell, a sympathetic guard slipping her a key during a transfer, whispering, "Run." Nia had, vanishing into Atlanta's veins, a ghost with nowhere to go, her burner phone nearly dead, pinged with a message from Zara, her journalist ally who'd survived the warehouse fire. "Underground. Find us." Nia followed the coordinates to a derelict factory, its rusted gates hiding a hacker collective, called the Veil. Inside, a dozen figures hunched over laptops, their faces lit by screens, air thick with cigarette smoke. Zara introduced Nia to Kai, the leader, a black trans woman with a mohawk and a voice like gravel. "We've been watching you," Kai said, tossing Nia a coffee. "Cobb's our enemy too." The Veil idolized Nia's courtroom stand, her leaked dossier their gospel. They'd hacked cops, mayors, but Cobb was their white whale, his bribes a fortress. Nia's heart flickered, the collective a new army. She shared her story, her voice steady. The slur, the mob, the bomb, the trial. Kai's eyes gleamed. "We hit his money. Hard." Nia nodded, her paralegal mind sinking with their chaos. The Veil had a plan. Breach Cobb's offshore accounts, hidden in a Cayman bank, and drain them to expose his network. Nia offered the USB's fragments, its emails a skeleton key to Cobb's finances. Kai's team, coders named Sparrow and Blitz, traced the emails to a server linked to Cobb's law firm. Nia's pulse raced, the factory's hum her war drum. They worked 3 nights, Nia learning to code on the fly, her bruised fingers clumsy but fierce. Sparrow cracked the bank's firewall, Blitz siphoning transactions. By dawn, they'd found it, a $50 million slush fund tied to Cobb's pack, funding Patriot Voice cops hitmen. Nia's chest tightened, the truth ablaid. Kai planned the heist, routing the funds to a dummy account, then leaking the transfer to the blackout. The whistleblower site Cobb's virus had crashed. Nia hesitated. Lena's betrayal a scar, but Kai's crew was loyal, their rage her own. At midnight they struck. Sparrow's worm bled the account dry, $50 million vanishing in seconds. Nia watched the screen, her split lip curling. As funds flowed, Kai broadcast the heist on the blackout, now revived, streaming proof of Cobb's theft to millions. The video showed bank records, Cobb's signature, his pack's deals. Nia narrated, her voice raw. "This is Harlan Cobb, the judge who called me unfit. This is his corruption." The stream hit 10 million views in hours. Hashtags like Cobb exposed. Trending. News anchors scrambled, quoting the leak, some daring to call for Cobb's arrest. Nia's anonymous account roared back, her followers swelling, chanting, "Truth wins." She felt like a general, her army the world. The factory erupted. In cheers, Kai slapping her back, Zara's eyes shining. Nia believed she'd crippled Cobb, his money gone, his power cracked. She dreamed of Marcus free from scandal, of Caleb safe, of a courtroom where she'd win. But Cobb was a hydra, his heads endless. At dawn, a Veil lookout screamed, "Drones!" The factory's skylights shattered, glass raining as quadcopters buzzed, cameras glinting. Kai's team scrambled, laptops slammed shut, but a new threat loomed. Nia's burner pinged, a text from an unknown number. "You stole from me, Caldwell. Pay." Her blood froze. Cobb hadn't folded. He'd hunted. Kai's scanners picked up a signal, a hitman's comms closing fast. Nia grabbed the USB, shoving Zara toward a back exit. The Veil scattered, their rebellion a trap. Footsteps thudded outside, a single figure emerging, a man in black, his rifle sleek, his face a blank mask. "Caldwell," he growled, his voice cold. Nia sprinted, the factory's maze her only edge, Zara limping behind. The hitman fired, bullets chewing concrete, a round grazing Nia's arm, blood soaking her sleeve. She dove behind a rusted press, her heart hammering, the USB clutched tight. The hitman stalked, his boots deliberate, Cobb's orders in his earpiece. End her. Nia's mind flashed to the rally, the warehouse, each escape narrower. She threw a wrench, clanging across the floor, drawing his aim. She lunged, tackling Zara through a side door, collapsing in an alley as the factory burned. The hitman's drone circling. Nia's arm bled, pain searing, but she ran, Zara gasping beside her. The Veil's signal died. Kai's crew gone. Their laptops ash. Nia's victory. The heist's roar was a lure. Cobb's retaliation a bullet meant for her heart. She stumbled into a ditch, blood pooling, her vision blurring. The USB was her last card, but the hitman was close, his shadow long. She thought of Marcus, the bomb, her tally's weight. Cobb had raised the stakes, his hate now a killer's aim. Nia whispered, "Not dead." Her vow a pulse. She dragged Zara up, limping into the night, a fugitive with nothing but rage. The heist had shaken Cobb, but his answer was death, and Nia was running out of lives. Nia Caldwell's arm throbbed, blood seeping through her torn sleeve as she stumbled through Atlanta's back alleys, the city's pulse a taunt against her fading strength. 20 days had passed since Judge Harlan Cobb's hitman fired at her in the factory, his bullet grazing her arm, a deadly reminder of her failed heist. The Veil's $50 million hack, meant to cripple Cobb's empire, had backfired, his drones and assassins scattering her hacker allies. Nia was a fugitive, her face on every wanted poster, her contempt and riot charges dwarfed by new lies of cyber-terrorism. Cobb's vendetta, sparked by her courtroom stand against his racist slur, had escalated into a slaughterhouse. Leaked emails, torched warehouses, car bombs, and now a hired killer. Her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, was a ghost, his family hunted, his power broken. Zara, her journalist ally, limped beside her, bruised but alive, their last safe house burned. Nia's paralegal life was ash, her underground followers silenced. But the USB in her pocket, holding fragments of Cobb's bribes, was a spark she wouldn't let die. Her mental tally grew, the hitman's blank mask joining Cobb's name, each mark a debt she'd collect. Bleeding and desperate, Nia found refuge in a condemned church, its stained glass shattered, pews coated in dust. Zara's burner phone, their last link, pinged with a message from Marcus, smuggled through a courier. Got proof. Cobb's hitman contract. Meet me. Nia's heart surged, the church's shadows a fleeting sanctuary. Marcus had tracked a paper trail, a contract, tying Cobb to the assassin, signed with his own hand. Nia's mind raced, her paralegal instincts plotting. The contract was dynamite, enough to jail Cobb if she could get it public. Zara, her eyes hollow but fierce, suggested a live stream on the Blackout, the whistleblower site they'd revived. Nia hesitated, the factory's flames a warning, but this was her last card. They rigged the phone with a stolen webcam, Nia's bloodied arm trembling as she set it up. At midnight, she went live, her face unmasked, the church's cross a stark backdrop. "I'm Nia Caldwell," she said, her voice raw but steady. "Cobb called me unfit, tried to bury me. This is his truth." She held up Marcus's proof, a scanned contract naming the hitman, Cobb's signature bold. Zara streamed it, the feed hitting 10 million viewers in minutes, hashtags like Cobb Court exploding, newsrooms scrambled, anchors quoting the contract, some calling for FBI probes. Nia's followers roared back, thousands chanting "Justice now." She felt like a phoenix, her truth a fire burning Cobb's lies. The nation erupted, protests flaring in Vine City, demands for Cobb's arrest trending. Nia's chest swelled, believing she'd won, that Marcus's proof had broken Cobb's spine. She ended the stream, her arm throbbing, Zara's nod a rare warmth. They planned to flee, to find Marcus, to end this war. But Cobb was a viper, his fangs never dull. An hour later, Nia's burner buzzed, a video link from an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. She clicked, and Cobb's face filled the screen, his smirk a blade. He stood in a dark room, A gun pressed to the head of Caleb, Naya's 8-year-old nephew. Caleb's eyes were wide, tears streaking, his blue backpack clutched tight. "You thought you'd win, Caldwell," Cobb sneered. "Come to me alone or he dies. Live on the blackout so the world sees you break." The feed cut replaced by coordinates, an abandoned warehouse on the city's edge. Nia's knees buckled, a scream trapped in her throat. Zara grabbed her, whispering, "It's a trap," but Nia's mind was Caleb's face, his fear her own. Marcus's proof her livestream had shaken Cobb, but his answer was this, a child's life to crush her soul. Nia thought of the hitman's bullet, the rally's gas, the jail's cuffs, each blow a step to this, Cobb's cruelest play. She stood, her arm bleeding, her body screaming, and checked the phone's map. The warehouse was 30 minutes away, a death sentence she'd walk into. Zara begged her to wait, to find Marcus, but Nia shook her head, her voice steel. "He's got Caleb, I go." She left Zara, the church's silence heavy, and ran, the city a blur of neon and dread. Her tally burned, Cobb's smirk its final mark, but Caleb was her blood, her reason. She stole a bike, pedaling through rain-slick streets, her wound tearing, with each push. The warehouse loomed, a rusted hulk under a moonless sky, its doors gaping like a maw. Nia ditched the bike, her breath shallow, knowing Cobb waited inside, his gun a promise. She checked her phone, its battery at 5%, and sent Marcus a text. "Warehouse. Caleb. Help." No reply came, but she moved, her heart a drum, her fear drowned by rage. The warehouse was dark, crates stacked like tombs, the air thick with oil and rot. Nia's eyes adjusted, spotting Caleb tied to a chair, his sobs a knife in her gut. Cobb stood beside him, his suit pristine, the gun steady. "Kneel, Caldwell," he said, his voice ice, "or he's gone." Nia's fists clenched, her arms blood dripping, but she stepped forward unarmed, her mind racing. The live stream was on, Cobb's phone propped on a crate, broadcasting to millions. The world watched, waiting for her to break. Nia's gaze locked on Caleb's, whispering, "I'm here." She thought of her courtroom, her first stand, the slur that started this. Cobb had taken everything, but not her will. She moved closer, her voice low. "You're done, Cobb. The contract's out. They know." His laugh was a whip, his gun pressing Caleb's temple. "You're nothing. A footnote." Nia's heart pounded, her plan reckless, born of desperation. She'd bait him, stall, pray. Marcus saw her text. She took another step, her eyes on the phone's red light. Knowing millions saw her, saw Caleb, saw Cobb's truth. The warehouse's silence was a noose, tightening with each second. But Nia was a storm, and storms don't beg. She stood tall, her blood pooling, ready to fight, knowing this was Cobb's endgame and hers. Nia Caldwell's blood dripped onto the rusted floor of the abandoned Atlanta warehouse, each drop a pulse against the deafening silence. Her arm, grazed by a hitman's bullet days ago, screamed with every move. But her eyes were locked on her. 8-year-old nephew Caleb tied to a chair, his tear-streaked face pale under the dim light. Judge Harlan Cobb stood beside him, his gun pressed to Caleb's temple, his smirk a blade sharper than any bullet. 20 days had passed since Nia's courtroom stand against Cobb's racist slur, a moment that had sparked a war of escalating horrors, leaked emails, torched safe houses, car bombs, and now this, a child's life as Cobb's ultimate checkmate. Nia was a fugitive, her body battered, her allies scattered, her brother Marcus, the Chief Justice, a ghost under Cobb's lies. The live stream on the blackout, broadcasting Nia's proof of Cobb's hitman contract, had shaken the nation, but Cobb's response was this trap, a warehouse rigged to end her. The air stank of oil and decay, crates looming like gravestones. The phone's red light glaring from a crate, millions watching her stand or fall. Nia's heart thundered, her paralegal mind racing, her tally of betrayals. Lena, the guard captain, the rally's agitators burning with Cobb's name. She'd come unarmed, her text to Marcus a desperate hope, but Caleb's whimpers were a chain she couldn't break. "Kneel," Cobb repeated, his voice ice, his suit pristine against the warehouse's rot. Nia took a step, her boots scraping, her mind a storm of plans. She'd bait him, draw a confession, pray the live stream caught it. Her pocket held a tiny recorder, slipped from Zara's gear, its button pressed as she'd entered. "You're finished, Cobb," she said, her voice steady despite the blood loss. "The world saw your contract. They know you hired a killer." Cobb laughed, a low, guttural sound, his gun unwavering. "You're a roach, Caldwell. Scurry all you want." "I crush you." Nia's eyes flicked to Caleb, whispering, "Stay strong." She edged closer, her words deliberate, each a hook for the recorder. "You bribed the guard captain, didn't you? Planted drugs to frame me." Cobb's smirk widened, his ego a crack she'd pry open. "Child's play. You were too easy. Whining about justice." Nia's pulse surged, his admission gold. She pushed, her voice rising. "The car bomb for Marcus's family, the mob that burned the warehouse, that was you too." Cobb stepped forward, the gun shifting slightly, his eyes glinting. "You think you're clever. I own this city. Cops, reporters, judges. You're nothing." Nia's breath caught, his confession spilling, the recorder drinking every word. She needed more, needed him to admit the trial's rigging. "Judge Hayes, the jury foreman, you bought them, didn't you? To kill my lawsuit." Cobb's laugh was a whip. "Hayes was cheap, the foreman cheaper. You thought you'd win in my world." Nia's heart soared, his words a noose tightening around him. The live stream's viewers, millions strong, were hearing this, her truth breaking Cobb's lies. But Caleb's sob pulled her back, his eyes pleading. Nia's plan hinged on Marcus, on help that might never come. She took another step, her arms blood pooling, her vision blurring. "Let him go, Cobb, you've got me." He cocked his head, savoring her surrender. "Oh, you'll die, but not yet. This place is wired to blow. You'll be a terrorist. Burned with your nephew. Poetic, no?" Nia's stomach lurched, the warehouse's crates hiding explosives, his plan a final twist of cruelty. She'd exposed his contract, shaken his empire, but he'd crafted this endgame, framing her as a monster. The recorder hummed, her last weapon, but time was bleeding out. She baited again, her voice loud for the stream. "You're confessing to murder, Cobb. Bribes, bombs, hitmen, why?" He leaned in, his gun grazing Caleb's hair, his voice a hiss. "Because you dared to speak, to shame me. I own justice, not your brother, not you." Nia's eyes burned. His words a jackpot, but Caleb's cry was a dagger. She was 10 feet away, too far to lunge, her body failing. The warehouse's silence was a coffin, the phone's light a cruel witness. Then a crash shattered the dark, doors splintering as boots thundered. Marcus burst in, his suit torn, federal agents at his heels, their rifles raised. "Cobb, drop it," he roared, his voice a thunderclap. Nia's knees buckled, relief flooding her. Marcus had gotten her text, rallied the feds, caught the live streams. Confession live. Cobb froze, his gun trembling, his smirk gone. The agents fanned out, red dots dancing on Cobb's chest. "You're done," Marcus said, his eyes locked on Caleb. Nia saw her chance, her body moving before her mind. She dove, tackling Cobb, her shoulder slamming his gut, the gun flying. Caleb screamed as Nia pinned Cobb, her bloodied arm wrenching his wrist, the recorder still rolling. An agent freed Caleb, pulling him to Marcus, who clutched his son, tears streaming. Cobb thrashed, his nails clawing Nia's face, but she held, her rage a vice. "You lose," she spat, her voice raw. The agents cuffed Cobb, his confession, streaming to millions, his empire crumbling. The warehouse's lights flickered, a distant hum hinting at his bombs, but an agent yelled, "Clear! Explosives disabled!" Nia staggered back, her arm limp, Caleb safe in Marcus's arms. The live stream cut, but the blackout servers held the truth, Cobb's words a death knell. Outside, sirens wailed, news vans swarming, the nation watching. As Cobb was dragged to a van, his face ashen, his power dust. Nia collapsed against a crate, her body spent, her mind reeling. Marcus knelt beside her, Caleb clinging, whispering, "You did it." The feds secured the scene, their radios crackling with orders to raid Cobb's firm, his pack, his allies. By dawn, headlines screamed, "Judge Cobb arrested, confesses to corruption." Protests flared, demanding justice, Nia's name a rallying cry. She was hailed a hero, her mugshots replaced by images of her bloodied but unbowed, the woman who'd toppled a titan. Marcus's scandal faded, his title restored, Tanya and Caleb safe. Nia's followers surged, millions chanting "Stand with Nia," her anonymous account a beacon. She sat in a hospital, her arms stitched, her face bruised but alive, watching the news with Zara, who'd escaped the factory. The Sanctuary Center reopened, Amara and Keisha free, the rally's truth revived. Nia's tally was complete, Cobb's mark crossed out, his allies falling like dominoes. She smiled, her first in weeks, believing the war was won. But as she switched off the TV, a shadow lingered. A nurse slipped her a note unsigned, its words chilling. Cobb was the pawn. I'm the king. You're mine, Caldwell. Nia's breath stopped, the paper trembling in her hand. The note named a man, Victor Klein, Cobb's law partner, a figure she'd glimpsed in court, his eyes cold, his power deeper than Cobb's. Klein was the mentor, the puppeteer, his network untouched, his vow a new war. Nia's triumph soured, her victory bittersweet. She'd felled Cobb, saved Caleb, exposed truth, but Klein's shadow loomed, a storm waiting to break. She folded the note, her jaw set, her eyes on the horizon. The hospital's hum faded, her heart a drum. Nia Caldwell was a hero, but heroes don't rest. She whispered, "Bring it." Her vow a spark, the fight far from over. The screen faded, Klein's name a whisper, Nia's future a battlefield unwritten. Nia Caldwell's battle against Judge Harlan Cobb reveals the brutal persistence of systemic racism and the courage required to confront it. Her story teaches that truth, though battered, can shatter even the most entrenched power. Nia faced relentless racist attacks, slurs, frame-ups, bombs, and betrayal, each designed to silence her. Yet her refusal to kneel, even when Cobb held her nephew's life, shows that resilience is a weapon. Her secret recording, baiting Cobb's confession, underscores the power of strategy over despair, turning a trap into triumph. The lesson is clear: justice demands sacrifice, cunning, and an unyielding spirit. Cobb's downfall, sparked by Nia's livestream, proves that one voice can ignite a movement, but the shadowy threat of Victor Klein warns that victories are fragile. Systemic racism doesn't die with one villain, it morphs, waiting to strike. Nia's bittersweet triumph teaches us to celebrate wins but stay vigilant as new battles loom. Her story calls us to question who pulls the strings in our systems, to challenge racist structures, and to amplify the voiceless. It's a reminder that heroism isn't in grand gestures, but in standing tall when the world demands you crawl. Nia's fight, though unfinished, lights a path for us all to resist, expose, and endure. What racist barriers have you seen in your community? Comment number 1 to share your thoughts. Hit like, subscribe, and share to spread Nia's fight for justice. Thank you for joining this journey of truth and courage. May you find strength to stand against hate in your own battles.